Jim Jubileer, 27, enter your comments at any time. The second is people. Do you have the right people doing the right thing, the breakthrough results? We tend to overestimate what Verne founded the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, and I'm active in EO. You need to be over 1 million to be in EO. So for the EOers that are on the call, you're already in a very elite group of people, only 4% of all businesses. But there's another big inflection point to go from roughly around 1 all the way up to 10 million. And that separates out even a smaller number of companies. And these tools and templates will help you accomplish that. But before we go on, what I'd like to do is celebrate and acknowledge you for even getting this far. Each of you, it's a huge win, and we all know how hard it is to be a business owner. So let's celebrate that. So I already talked about the new book. This is what the cover looks like. If you would like, I'm happy to give you or mail you a copy of the book if you don't already. 4 decisions paradigm is maintained. We don't throw it out. It's still the same 4 decisions, but we have a bunch of new content behind it. The 7 strata of strategy, which I'll show you, is new. We've updated the 1-page strategic plan, and that is mostly the same as it was, but with some new thinking applied to it. So we got a ton of good stuff to help you grow your business, along with tons and tons of real examples of companies making a difference doing this. So for starters, I'd like to walk you through the idea that we have a roadmap for how to implement growth in your business program. Year 1 is getting the foundation right. So the next 3 slides are going to show you more or less the scope of work that we do over that 3-year program. The first, and it says session 1, session 2, we sometimes do this in all-day trainings. Sometimes we do it as part of the strategic planning retreat that we run. So there's a couple different ways we roll it out. To get your company started, I will walk you through the habits checklist and who's going to do what by when. That's what WWW refers to. Core values I'll speak about, and SWOT I'll speak about. I won't go through each and every one of these, but they're basically fundamental action steps you need to take right away to get started. So they're core elements. The other parts of the core elements are in session 2, relating to what we call your sandbox. Where are you going to play, or how are you going to play? What is your geography? What markets? What products? What pricing? Who is your ideal customer? All of the companies I work with are in growth mode. So they're going from that $1 million to that $10 million size. And we pay a lot of attention to top line growth. How do we expand our products? How do we expand our geography? How do we raise our prices? All of these action steps lead to growth to the business. So that's what Sandbox is. And knowing who we're going after, our core customer, and what are we promising them, are huge, critical. I can't emphasize that enough. The face and pace processes that we have are teamwork alignment exercises to make sure that we're doing the right, that the right functions and the right process steps are being done. And then we take a look at who are the people, and does everybody have the right amount of responsibility, not too much, not too little, etc. And that's how I have more detail today. The Power of One is a financial tool, which I'll also discuss. And then we turn to individual plan action steps. And this is where the execution comes in. We hold the entire strategic plan inside a big Excel spreadsheet that breaks down every strategy into its component tactics, and each tactic into a month-by-month action plan that's owned by one or more members of your team. and then we track those on a month-by-month basis. It's huge. So these are some of the things that we do in our first year together, but my program is the best practices in business development and leadership development from a wide variety of sources. So while we use the Scaling Up Gazelle's framework quite heavily, it's not the only thing we do, and we bring in other best practices from other thought leaders and other domains. I'm an executive coach in the lead. Our advanced tools include things like your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal. We tend to move that out into year 2 because it's not something you get right away. It really takes a while to poke at it. We want to make sure your fundamental strategies are in place, the team is executing, you're growing your revenues, you're growing your cash flow, you have a healthy business, and from that point we look at the big, hairy, audacious goal. In session 4, another thing that we look at are core competencies. Some people like to speed this up and do it in year 1, but usually we're busy with other things. So it's in year 2 that we say, okay, who are we? What are we good at? How do we want to use our core to grow and to expand? For instance, some companies are more in a service mode and just offer their services, and they want to pivot into having products. And so moving into a product marketing business model requires new skills. Do the people on my team have the right core competencies to do that? Another advanced tool are themes, although frequently we do that in year 1, which is every quarter we set an overall headline, a theme for what we want to accomplish. So I have one client that's an e-commerce company that gets a significant amount of their revenue around Christmas. So in Q3, which starts in the summer, it was preparing for growth. We wanted to get everything in place we needed to have a successful Christmas by the end of Q3. The theme for Q4 was warp speed ahead, and that was all about execution, execution, execution. Can you see how that works? So that's how we use themes. At the mastery level, we really get into some things that involve list. We're going to talk about innovation. So there's a couple of themes that come up. Does it mean you have to wait 2 years or 3 years before you work on those? No, of course not. We look at all of the tools in our toolkit and we fit the right approach to what the need of the business is in the moment. But innovation is something we work on from the beginning, but what we find is once companies have started to get into growth, they're really growing, that revenue's coming in, the team is sound, then we can say, okay, what's a big pivot move, an innovation growth process we can take that will have a significant ability to scale up. And I'll show you some examples of that from well-known brands like Apple and Starbucks. So one of the great things that Verne has done is come up with the idea that strategic planning is really 2 different things. The first is strategic thinking that's shown on the right side of this graph, and that refers to big picture, long-term trends, big, hairy, audacious goal. It has to be done by the senior leadership team. Some of you on the call have leadership teams underneath you. Some of you more or less are the leadership team and are running the business. It's the same process, and you have to wear both hats. So the second part is the planning of the specifics of the execution, the annual plan, the quarterly plan, all the way down to the individual action steps. So I like this chart just because it shows you that it's a spectrum that occurs over time, and possibly different people in the organization are holding or carrying these things. So it takes a long time to get this stuff right. So I want to set some expectations for how long you ought to be prepared to get a certain kind of result. If you've owned a business, your company is 3 years old or less, you're really in the startup phase. It takes that long just to get momentum, figure out what you're doing, build your brand promise. So there's the 0 to 3 year startup phase, and you're like an infant, you're barely walking. What I find is 3 to 8 years is another run. So by the time you're in year 8, I'm an angel investment rules that we're covering in today's webinar. But we see that there's another pivot point, and surprisingly, it occurs somewhere between year 18 and year 25. And there are numerous studies that show this. So one example is even after 25 years, Apple was under 10,000 people. And then things really took off, and they are now what they've become, the world's most valuable corporation. Sensation. So what we want to do is make sure that your business is working for you, not you working for your business. And to do that, we do something called the one-page personal plan, not the one-page strategic plan. The one-page personal plan includes a number of categories, including finance, fitness, friends, family, faith, play, philanthropy, and work. And we want to make sure we're taking the right actions in each of those areas. So we have a tool for doing that. Unfortunately, when I uploaded this, the black background came in. So when we send you the follow-up, we'll include the PowerPoint worksheet for the plan. But basically what we do is in each of these 8 categories, we look at what our aspirations are over a 10 to 25 year time frame. Where do I really want to be 10 years regarding my fitness, regarding my finances, regarding my philanthropy? What do I want to do this year? So my goals. And then my actions are spelled out in a 90-day, quarterly chunks. And we pay close attention to what do we need to start doing, what do we need to stop doing. So I'd be happy to work with you on your one-page personal plan if you have any questions about that. So, and you'll get, and I apologize, this slide doesn't look good. We'll email that to you in the follow-up. The more you learn, the more you earn. So a big part of scaling up is making sure that you have the right resources for growth to continue your learning. And there's 3 main ways that we do that. One of them is our days of the world's best business thought leaders and business leaders that just blow our mind and give us great speeches. So I invite you all to come to the conferences. We then download or distill through video the people that we think are the best speakers, and we put that into the Gazelle's website. So we have 40 individual modules from some of the best people, and those are available for on-demand learning for you and your team. Some companies commit to listening to video per month and talking about it. So video is just one tool. The other tool that I'm very excited about has a large ad agency and actually paid people to read books. And it was so successful, they turned it into a business. So the Better Book Club is a website, and literally you load or I load for you a list of books that we either recommend or require everybody to read, and then you actually pay your team for reading those books. So you put a specific point value on each book, and when a person submits a report showing they've read it, they get credits. And once a month or once a quarter, we have a book club discussion. It's a very low-cost, individually driven learning system. So you set it up, but it's really up to each person to take advantage of it. So a number of clients are getting fantastic results with the Better Book Club, which is a low-cost investment. And that is part of our philosophy as outlined in Scaling Up. Continuing on, we have an online assessment tool, the 4 Decisions Assessment. So we take the 4 decisions questions, turn them into very specific questions that you complete and your team members complete, and you get to see how each and everybody on the team scores in each of those areas. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's a complimentary assessment to measure your progress against the 4 decisions. Some companies do this twice a year. They do it at the beginning of the year, how we doing, and they do it in the middle of the year, how are we making progress. So either a once a year doing it or twice a year just to get data, get the baseline the first time, and then measure progress. So the online assessment is a wonderful tool. Another thing that's new in Scaling Up is getting your junior staff more involved in the strategies. And so for a bigger company, we have an annual planning session, 2 days off-site, going through the details of the separate threats, etc. And then that team provides a briefing to senior management. So it's a really great way to both grow the team and get better participation. So that's just one particular event that we found has worked quite well. The 7 strata of strategy itself could be a whole day workshop. So I'll just have to be brief about it, and it partly relates to we want you to be the thought leader in your industry. There has to be words, and this is partly for SEO purposes, but it's also to be recognized as a thought leader. Are you speaking at conferences? Are you quoted in the newspaper? Do you have white papers that clients can turn to? It's not as expensive or time-consuming as you think, although it still does take work to build yourself up as that thought leader. I already talked a little bit about the sandbox and the brand promise. The X factor is the thing that's really going to accelerate your growth. And we saw from Starbucks and Apple, some of that didn't happen until year 25. They were already a huge company, but then they went on to become what they have become. So the X factor is more of an advanced practice. I'd be happy to go through with you the 7 strata in more detail, but it's a very important tool, and we call it the plan behind the plan, because some of this is part of the one-page plan and some of it stands behind it. In our work with companies, we make sure that they're clear about their why they do what they do. And I just finished a 4-part series on that. And in the follow-on email you'll get a link to the First Friday's content architecture where each of those 4 webinars is hosted. And you can listen to those to learn about how to discover and express your why and how to bring that into business. Another new topic in Scaling Up relates to trends. We do a lot of work with SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. But sometimes we find companies are too internally focused, so they miss the big trends that are coming through. So with my clients, once a year, we have a trend spotting session. We just sit down and talk about what are the big trends that can impact our business. So the trends are part of the SWOT analysis. A lot of neat stuff going on. I want to talk about the importance of innovation. This picture may not be easy to understand. What you're looking at is a guy walking into a subway, That's what's in the middle picture. And the guy on the right is scanning a barcode that's on the wall. That's actually a billboard of a grocery store. And when that guy gets on the train 2 stops later and gets off, all his groceries are packaged up waiting for him. It's in South Korea. It's huge and it's way cool. So one of the trends I'd like to leave you with today is the importance of innovation. We're through the global crash. We're through the recession. The economy is healthy. The people that have money have money. Don't let the news distract you. A lot of people are looking for real solutions to real problems and are willing to pay for them today. And so we want to innovate and offer the right products and services. Just briefly, top grading is a system for making sure we have the best people. We have all A players. And one component of that is paying people more. We want to pay people 20 to 30% above market and get 50% greater productivity from them. And we've done studies in a number of industries. This is a study from Wall Street. We've also done a study in retail, comparing Sam's Club, Walmart, and Costco in terms of profit per employee. And so we see the same trends with $10 an hour people and $1 million a year people. It's the same process, which is pay your people a little more, but then expect a lot more out of them. Now, that doesn't mean burning them out or making it a sweatshop. It's being a best place to work, getting A players, removing the bureaucracy and the BS that turns people off, and then really setting them free to soar. I want to turn to financials. The power of one is a tool and a philosophy, which is if we increased each of 7 key financial variables only by 1%, not 10, not 20, what would it be worth? Those 7 key variables are price, volume, inventory, which may not apply to those of you that are in service businesses, etc. We typically don't look at a 1% price increase. However, we look at a 5, 10, 20% price increase because in every industry we've done it, we found that demand is inelastic, which is just a fancy way of saying you can raise your prices more than you think you can, and nobody complains. So we put a lot of emphasis on sales, marketing, pricing, and then the other finance. A whole bunch of new tools that were not in the Rockefeller Habits but are in Scaling Up and are in our new Gazelle's intellectual property about optimizing your fundability. We have a whole discipline we go through around the business model, the exit plan, goals, KPIs, all with an eye towards how will that look and how will that be viewed by external funders. Could be banks, could be investors, could be strategic alliance partners. So a lot of companies, once they have their fundamentals in place, are really looking to scale up, perhaps get an exit, but not always, perhaps to get funding, but not always. The same things you need to do, however, to be an attractive business to be acquired means you also have an attractive business to keep owning. I got the most wonderful email yesterday from a client of mine who has done exactly that. He's grown his business and he's now stepped out of the CEO role. Somebody else is running that. They're doing great. And my client spent his wife to Necker Island, which is Richard Branson's private island in the Caribbean, with Richard and a whole bunch of other EOers. And he described in his blog post what his experience was being there, because he's looking at new opportunities and he's taking himself to the next level. And he didn't know it at the time when he booked it, but he actually had a chance to pitch Richard on his new business idea. And he's now been passed to the executive team at Virgin, one of the Virgin. So we want to get you to that kind of a place if that's your goal. It may not be your goal, but wanted to say that the companies that are really killing it and are described in Scaling Up are creating those kind of experiences for themselves. So there are specific factors for increasing company value, and these are the things that we coach on. These are the things that we focus on. And this is why when I say it's a 3-year program, it takes a little bit of time to get some of these things right. We get started immediately. We get an ROI right away, and it grows from there. So what I'd like to ask you to do now, we've covered a lot of ground, and I know I've gone somewhat quickly. If you would write in the chat box, what is your main takeaway from today's session? What's the thing that either stands out in or like you know you're going to implement it, something that's really memorable from what we covered? So take a minute to fill that out. And as those chat messages come in, I'll just wrap up by saying this is Jim Jubileer, Jubileer Results Group, and I look forward to seeing your great results as you scale up in 2015.